Mes recherches me conduisent au Nouveau-Mexique. J'ai trouvé l'adresse d'un ancien assistant personnel de Maharishi. Un dénommé Skin Boy. Au téléphone, il m'a dit qu'il avait quelque chose de très précieux à me montrer.
I can't describe it really, but it feels very alive. So he wore these exclusively for years and years and years until they broke. So, you know, there are some people who would probably pay a lot for these.
But if they're so precious and have so much value for you, how can you think to sell them?
Oh, I can think to sell them. I spent over $100,000 of my own money working for the movement. So, you know, if I got some of that back, I wouldn't mind.
Actually, what was the duty of a skin boy? How did it work?
Oh.
You had to carry, the name comes from carrying the deer skin.
The name comes from carrying the deer skin, and the name and the fame.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we'd be walking into these halls with sometimes thousands of people, hundreds of people, however many. The skin boy would walk in front of him. It was like this divine air would come down from heaven and we'd be breathing it. I got addicted to that. You know, the world is a harsh place. And Maharishi could be very harsh, believe me. So for a while I had trouble putting the paradox together. You know, how could he be so awful and so wonderful at the same time? But he was awful and wonderful at the same time. That's just how it was. Repeatedly I would see him, you know, use people and then just kick them out. And oftentimes he would discard them when they ran out of money. You know, he would use people and then he would brush them off like flies. You know how I told you how he could get inside of you and help you sleep? He could also get inside of you and pulverize you completely. So that's what he did. He just pulverized me and told me to leave. And I was devastated for 2 years after that. He wanted me to leave because I had run out of money and because I wasn't serving him as wholeheartedly as I had been before. For example, he'd have me bring women to his room and he'd be in there with him. I'm not going to name any names, but there's no question in my mind that he had sex with the women.
To refrain from the worldly joys of life, that is a monkish way of life. If one wants to lead a spiritual life, one has to renounce the world. I had the idea that I must renounce the world in order to be really a spiritual man, a yogi.
Maharishi recommandait à ses adeptes l'abstinence sexuelle pour leur développement spirituel. Mais le bruit courait que lui-même n'était pas trop rigoureux sur son célibat. La première à oser en parler devant ma caméra est Judith Bourque. Cette ancienne professeure de méditation transcendantale est aujourd'hui guérisseuse chamanique.
I just think all the time I was in complete awe. I felt so incredibly, I felt loved, I felt special. I mean, he was amazing to be with. So when I came to India, for me, it was like, oh, I'm going to get to meet, it's like meeting Jesus here and now, you know. And then to have someone who's almost like God fall in love with you or treat you in that special way. I mean, it was really hard for me to grasp. I was exceedingly happy. I did not in any way feel invaded. And I was never forced into any situation with him. And he took me to this room in his house that was down on the floor below. He called it his cave. small room. It's his meditation cave. So we sat there, and I think he must have spoken to me about something to do with my meditation, if my meditation was good. And then all of a sudden he started to pet my hair. He started to go like this, stroking my hair. And I was just, what is this? And he laughed. It was so easy for him to laugh. He giggled and he laughed and he said, "Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone." I haven't opened it for some time. So one day I went into his room and he wasn't there. He had just left. It's kind of embarrassing, but I just went over to his hairbrush and took out his hair. It's this thing we do, we humans. If someone means something to us, we want a piece of their hair, a lock of their hair. So I took it. I asked him at one point, what would you do if I became pregnant? And he said, "Get married quick." And he didn't mean to him. He meant that he would arrange some kind of marriage for me quickly. So I think when I asked him that question and I got that answer, I understood that this would never be a normal relationship in that way. And then in time, I also noticed that he started to get interested in other young women. So that period of 2 years, it was like not as often and then less often. And toward the end, it was clear to me that he was interested in other women at that time. So I just decided to leave.
Dans le Colorado, je parviens à retrouver Earl Caplan, à l'époque le plus grand donateur du mouvement. Il a apporté plus de 150 millions de dollars dans divers projets. Après sa rupture avec Maharishi en 2004, cet homme d'affaires prospère a quitté Fairfield pour s'installer dans les Rocheuses.
But it looks beautiful this
So yeah, you can
this
almost
also.
see that. In the TM organization, the whole idea was to sit, let it be, just not really do anything. You think of a mechanical repetition of a mantra, and then good things come. In life, you were supposed to do less and accomplish more. It doesn't work. I've never met a successful person who had the idea that if they did less, they would accomplish more. People in business succeed when they are very focused. So I had donated all this money to help build a permanent 10,000 group of India that Mahesh had always been saying would bring world peace. So I believe in 2000, Neil Patterson showed me some pictures of some buildings they had built. And they were missing roofs, and he showed me the pictures of the groups of people, and they moved the different people around in the picture to try to make me believe they had more people than they had. And I looked at that and I thought, what a joke. And then another time I was sitting with Mahesh, and we were talking about getting different groups together, and there were a lot of discussions, and I said, Maharishi, why don't we just put a 10,000 group in place? I've donated enough money to support a group like that in India. And with 10,000 people, you've been saying there would be world peace right away. And he looked at me and he said, Earl, I have no idea if a 10,000 group would create world peace. We would have to create that group, and see what effects it would have. And I was shocked because Mahesh had done numerous fundraisers, gotten so many thousands of people to donate money with this idea that he was going to create a permanent 10,000 group that would usher in world peace. And when we were in private, he told me he had no idea. That was amazing to me, just amazing.
But you've been the biggest donator in the history of TM.
As far as I know, and I'm not really proud of that fact either.
Okay.
I did talk to a person who says they saw the will, Mahesh's will, putting, certain large amounts of money to different people of his family. Rumor has it that that family became one of the wealthiest families in India. And, it wasn't until after I had left the TM movement, or right at the end that I was in the movement, that I went to India for the first time. And, things cost 1/40th in India what they do here. So the money that my brother and I donated should have, revolutionized the lives of tens of thousands of people. I don't think much happened.